Perhaps you remember that anecdote of Mulla Nasruddin, that time when it came to the ears of the Sultan of the day that Mulla Nasruddin had mystical powers. So he was hauled up before the Sultan, who said to him, "Mullah, I believe that you have mystical powers. Tell me something mystical immediately, otherwise your head will be lopped from your shoulders." So Mulla Nasruddin looked up and he said, "Oh, sire, I see your mother and father sitting on golden thrones, drinking from golden cups and served by the celestial beings." The Sultan had a big smile on his face. He was obviously delighted with this answer. And he said, Mullah, tell me, from where do you source your mystical powers? And the Mullah said, fear. Fear will do it every time. And that's their story about the great physician Mimonedes. Now, not only was Mimonedes a very famous and well-known doctor, but he was also a philosopher, an astronomer, a scholar, and the like. But there came a time when the Emperor Saladin called all the doctors of the land to his palace, and he announced to them that he was seeking to appoint a doctor to be the official court physician. And so they would all be tested and one would be chosen amongst them. And of course he said that whoever it was would have great fame and fortune. Now Maimonides sought not fame and fortune, but of course he was one of those who was called up to be before the great emperor. And after a process of elimination, it came down that there were only two physicians. One was Maimonides, and another doctor by the name of Kaimon. Now, between them, it had to be decided who was going to take this illustrious position, and Kaimon, being a very ambitious man, said to the emperor, "Oh, you should choose me because I have greater powers than anyone else. I can even heal the blind." "Oh," said the emperor, "can you give a demonstration of this?" And so a blind man was called, and he came staggering into the room, and Kaimon went up to him and rubbed some emollient onto his eyes and said a few incantations, and suddenly the man said, I can see. But of course Maimonides was very skeptical of this, and so he said to the blind man, "How long have you been blind?" The blind man said, "Since birth." And so Maimonides held up a piece of cloth in front of him and said, "What is this?" And the blind man said, "It's a scarf." "And what color is it?" said Maimonides. "Red," said the blind man. "Oh," said Maimonides, "if indeed you have been blind since birth, how is it that you can recognize the color and what this is?" So immediately the blind man ran out of the room to escape what fate might await him. But Kaimon apologized and said, "Oh, he deceived me. I was not out to deceive you. the blind man deceived me. And the emperor said, well, no, why should I forgive you? And Kaimon said, well, I am the best physician. You know, monarch, that there are people who want to assassinate you, who want to do away with you, to poison you. And I am one who knows all the ways of all the poisons and all the antidotes that can be found for them. And so said the emperor, well, in that case, I will test you both. Both of you will be put in a room, and you can test your poisons on one another, and whoever survives will become my court doctor. Now Maimonides said, I have no intention of killing anyone. My oath that was taken was to heal and cure, not to kill. But of course, he had no choice but to be placed in the room with Kaimon and left there. Well, in the following days, both Maimonides and Kaimon watched each other's moves. Every move that was made was followed. And during that time, Kaimon used every means that he could to use his poisons on Maimonides. He rubbed poison on his cloak so that it touched his skin. But whatever way that Kaimon tried to administer his poison, Maimonides was able to have the antidote. So Kaimon got very desperate and very concerned, of course, because he was worried. What is this Maimonides doing to me? So he became so anxious that he stopped eating and he stopped drinking for fear that it was going to be administered in one way or another. And he would shake and tremble at the thought. But then, suddenly, he was desperately thirsty, without food or drink for days. And he saw Maimonides take a bottle of milk and pour it into a glass. And so immediately Kaimon grabbed the glass of milk and quaffed it down. Maimonides said, oh, I knew you would have to drink. And immediately Kaimon grabbed his throat. What kind of a poison was it? Shaking and trembling and fearful, he went to every antidote of poison that he had in his pantheon, taking great doses, but none of them seemed to do away with the poison that had been given him. The next morning, Kaimon was found cold and dead on the floor of the room. And so it was that Maimonides was brought before the great emperor and was told, well, you are now the court physician. But the emperor asking, what poison did you use on Kaimon? And Maimonides said, I am a healer. I am a doctor. I have no intent to harm. There was no poison. So the emperor asked, what was it then that caused the death of this man? And of course Maimonides answered, It was his own fear. Fear became so intense that it was too much for his heart, and his heart has burst, causing his death. We can ask ourselves the question, what role has fear played in our life? What did fear create in us? What was fear an instrument of? In seeking the answer to this question, we have the possibility of arriving at one of the greatest mysteries, one of the greatest mysteries hidden in plain sight. What has fear done for us?
Separation, disconnection.
Okay.
It's given me my mystical powers.
Yes.